What is going on? This is the Clean Hits Hockey Podcast. And if you are a Utah Hockey Club fan, you got some great news because you're going to get a daily dose of veggie for 5 more years. Last night, March 5th, was a wild night, maybe even kind of a statement night for multiple reasons for the Utah Hockey Club, for general manager Bill Armstrong, and for this team, as pretty much all the key unrestricted free agents were signed up. We had extensions, more extensions. You get an extension, extensions everywhere. And on the Clean Hits Hockey Podcast today, we are going to be talking about those, some pros and cons for all of them, what it means for the Utah Hockey Club, and what we can expect for the rest of the trade deadline, which is tomorrow. If you are watching this on March 5th, again, the trade deadline for the NHL is March 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern. I believe all deals have to be into the league. Sometimes they take a little bit of extra time to process, as you Canadians say. And then they all go through. Exciting day. It's kind of a national holiday for all the hockey obsessed puckheads out there. But before we get into the thick of it, we want to take a moment to talk about our favorite partners, our only partner, Overtime Cards and Collectibles from Utah. This is the premier and best place to get NHL, Upper Deck, Hockey Club, or hockey cards, or any of your Utah Hockey Club collectibles. In fact, we got Corey cracking a pack now so you can see just how fun it is to collect hockey cards. We'll take a look at what he got after I am done just talking about how great this store is. It's a huge community hub for the Utah Hockey Club fans. They, of course, have a big mega signing with Mikhail Sergachev on March 21st from 5 to 7. Unfortunately, this one is completely sold out, guys. So make sure you are following them on Twitter at Overtime Cards UT to make sure you stay up to date with all their events, or go on down to their website, overtimecardsandcollectibles.com, to check out their events calendar. You don't want to miss these. These are going to be a great event. They've already had Dylan Gunther. They got the GOAT, Mikhail Sergachev, coming. Again, that's at 10673 South State Street in Sandy, Utah, which is going to be right next to the Utah Hockey Club's new practice facility. So I have a feeling that we are going to have tons of time to hang out and talk about your favorite team down at Overtime Cards and Collectibles. Corey, what you pull? What did you pull?
Probably biggest names from the pack. So 12 cards in there. There was Alexis Lafreniere, and then some kind of special card here, City Satellites, and it is Alex DeBrincat with Detroit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Also opened a second pack the other day. Couldn't just buy one. And it did have a couple of Utah players in there as well. Now these are still showing Coyotes jerseys because I guess they're using photos from last year. But the recently re-signed Alex Kerfoot and Nick Schmaltz.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And actually, the brand new Upper Deck NHL cards just got released that will have Utah players in their Utah uniforms. So definitely go down to Overtime Cards, pick up some packs, see if you get your favorite player. And again, make sure you're following them so you can catch these events before they sell out. Also, special news for that Mikhail Sergachev signing. I will be out there to hang out, meet you all, meet Mikhail, hopefully, and just hang out at Overtime. I can't wait. So definitely be sure to stop by. We will see you there. And gosh, we just keep on piling it up. For the event, we had to do it.
Yes.
We're making Mikhail Sergachev shirts. They will be in our store probably later today. That is shop.cleanhitshockey.com to get yours. Again, if you're going to that event, pick one up. This will be one of those items you could potentially get signed from him. We got a couple different colors. There's some Russian on there, if you can decipher what it means, a little bit of text, but we had to give our tribute to the GOAT himself, who will be doing a signing at Overtime Cards and Collectibles. So awesome stuff there. And again, I can't wait to meet some of you in person, in real life at Overtime. And it's going to be an awesome event. And there may be more on the horizon. Yeah. Anyway, So let's get into the thick of it. So again, last night it felt like tweet after tweet after notification kept on coming out, and they were all about Utah Hockey Club. They definitely took the spotlight last night. So all of Alex Kerfoot, Ian Cole, and Vejmelka were signed last night, 2 extensions, and then earlier this week, Alimata was re-signed as well. So that was the bulk of the UFAs, so unrestricted free agents who can walk in the offseason. If they don't have a deal, they can choose if they'd rather go to a different team. They're all locked up. And several of these players, like Cole and Mata, and even Kerfoot a little bit, were guys we were maybe thinking could potentially be some trade targets. So really quickly, Ian Cole gets signed for 1 more year at $2.8 million. Alimata was signed for 3 years at $3.5 million. Alex Kerfoot, 1 more year at $3 million. And then Vejmelka, who gets a 5-year deal with an average cost of $4.75. It is front loaded, which gives some flexibility near the end of that contract. These guys are going to be on the team for the remainder of this season for a playoff push and into next year. So what are some of your guys' initial reactions?
I think one player that you don't hear a lot about is Ian Cole. Leads the league in 160 block shots. Both he and Kerfoot are back, and they're taking, even in a rising cap, they're taking less money to come back. Ian Cole with 2.8 million and an additional 200,000 in games played bonuses. He's eligible for bonuses because he's over age 35. I think he could be someone next year who was sort of the Robert Bertuzzo this year. Probably see a little bit more action, but you look at the left side of the defense, you're going to have Mikhail Sergachev. Dmitry Simishev is expected to come over once the KHL season is done and he can sign in North America. So he'll play on the left side. We have Alimata back. So that's probably your 1, 2, 3. And then Ian Cole can sub in when they just need a change, when there's injuries. Alex Kerfoot, a great utility player, can play anywhere in the lineup, any forward line, left wing, right wing, center, penalty kill, power play, leads the forward group in block shots. Alimata, Daily Faceoff today, Frank Sarabelli was saying Alimata is maybe a candidate for one of the players who saved the season this year in Utah with Sean Dursey and John Marino missing so much time. Paid a fair price to get him out of Detroit, but came in to Utah and has had probably his best season since those years in Pittsburgh when he won the Stanley Cup, 2 Stanley Cups. Taken on all kinds of ice time, similar to Kerfoot when he can play in any situation, power play, penalty kill, even strength. And then, Karel Vejmelka, we talk about MVPs and really took the number 1 job in Utah this year. And I think that's a contract we've all been kind of speculating at with some time now, right? We kind of thought it'd be around 5 times 5, and it comes right in under that number.
Yeah. And this is a testament to the players and their love to Utah. Like Corey said, a couple of these guys like Kerfoot and Cole came back and re-signed with Utah at a discounted rate. So that's kudos to the organization, kudos to the fans of Utah. And this is also a clear indicator of Bill Armstrong believing in his product and doubling down.
Cool.
What's up?
We have some, this is not really breaking news, but it's from 2 hours ago. But I'm just seeing it now. TSN's Mark Masters saying Mikko Rantanen will not play tonight in preparation of a trade.
Wow. Okay.
Right, we'll get to that in a moment.
Oh boy.
Thank you, Corey.
That's something. I gotta go. I have to suddenly go to the bathroom. But it's just to get back to it. This is Bill Armstrong doubling down on this roster. It shows that he believes in it, and it's awesome to see. And what did you get? Did you get?
Yeah, that was a troll account.
Okay, yeah,
I was gonna say, this time of year.
Yeah.
I don't even Carolina. Did they even play today? I don't know, but
they do.
That's great. I love it.
Against Boston.
It's still, hey, we got time. Maybe he does sit out. That'd be something to watch for. But it again, it kind of it shows that he believes in the team and that we are making a legitimate push for the playoffs.
Yeah,
I know there was a recent article by Craig Morgan where he talked to Bill Armstrong, and Bill Armstrong did mention that this group deserves to stay together. He was very careful with his words, and I think Corey's mentioned it before. Bill Armstrong never really fully shows his hand. And so what you do see in that article is him saying, hey, I don't want to subtract from this team unless something blows me away, right? So you got to pay attention to that. Another thing you have to pay attention to is that he didn't necessarily say he didn't want to add to this team. So locking up all these guys in preparation for tomorrow, this could be a very interesting next 24 hours for us. So it's worth mentioning that the only UFAs we have remaining on the roster are Nick Bjugstad. He's a name to watch potentially for tomorrow. I know that we said that we don't want to subtract from the team, but he could be a guy on the way out, potentially. Michael Carconi also. He's a UFA at the end of the year, or as of July 1st. Apologies there. Nick DeSimone and Robert Bortuzzo. Those are our only remaining unsigned players going into next year, which is a night and day difference going into last year. So, again, just pay attention to those names. Teams out there might be looking for some defensive and scoring depth. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and one interesting thing, and it's kind of piggybacking off what you said, Kenny, about how this feels very different than years before. So if you weren't paying attention to the team when they were the Arizona Coyotes last season, a lot of those UFAs walked. So Matt Dumba was one of them. I know they had multiple people on the blue line that have just kind of dispersed, and it was definitely kind of a patchwork blue line, if you will. But I think we traded Zucker as well, and did we actually trade Dumba? I'm sorry if I messed that up. Yes, so we
Dumba
traded
went to
upcoming
Tampa.
UFAs.
Yeah,
yes,
but the thing was the I don't know how to even describe it. The financially careful ownership in Arizona was unwilling to retain on the salaries of Dumba and Zucker, so it really hurt the returns at the deadline.
Careful is not a word I would have used, but I like where you went.
Yes, that is correct. But also, by trading your UFAs, you are in some ways letting them walk away.
Yeah.
So this is a very different trade deadline approach, as not only have they locked up all the key UFAs, they did it a full day before the deadline. And if that is a statement to say, hey guys, we want to buy, I don't know what else would be. I mean, a lot of these players we were talking about potentially having a lot of value in the trade market. Ian Cole is kind of like your Chris Tanev of last year, who had a nice return for a shutdown defenseman. Vejmelka has really, really stood on his head at times this season and is really looking like a prime starting goaltender. And there's contenders, aka the Edmonton Oilers, who are really struggling in net right now. And you got to think they would have paid a ransom for him. Even guys like Alex Kerfoot, pretty much any cup contender would prefer to add him in their bottom nine. So by doing this, I think he's saying we want to make the playoff push. We are only here to buy. And if we don't buy, we at least have the same group that I believe in going into this playoff push.
Yep.
And this has to be a huge morale boost for the team.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. I love your point, Brad. I think it kind of puts kibosh on like the fact that like, hey, we're gonna stand pat. I'm getting the exact opposite vibes now. I mean, I guess, locking up all those players and saying, hey guys, we're going for it is one way to do it. But I mean, you got to think Bill has something up his sleeve. And we were talking about it right before we got on the podcast here today, that we feel something's coming. We don't know what it is, but we all have that same feeling that something's coming tomorrow. It's not going to be quiet for us.
Yeah. And a winning record too, since Sean Dursey returned to the lineup, and looked a lot better since Marino came back about a month ago too, right? So finally, it took till late February for Bill Armstrong to finally see the team that he put together in the offseason, but it's here and they're winning.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, now let's talk about some of these contract extensions before we go into more trade deadline speculation. Let's start with some of the easy ones. Kerfoot here for one more year. Ian Cole for one more year. Pretty no-brainer deals here. I believe we all kind of talked about wanting to re-sign Kerfoot. Now, Cole was one that we were saying maybe, especially after the Mata re-signing, that Cole may be able to fetch something useful that could help us upgrade somewhere else potentially. But here we are. We have essentially the entire blue line signed and locked up for next season, as you mentioned, Corey, maybe with the addition of Simishev or Maverick Lemera as the 7th defenseman. And now we have Kerfoot as a prime bottom 9 piece, both for 1 year. Feels very risk-free, but extremely good depth. Just kind of initial thoughts on those two. Any cons at all here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Kerfoot, he can play really anywhere in the lineup. We've seen the offense drop off a little bit this year, but I think that's, similar to a lot of the players like Lawson Crouse, who are just getting fewer minutes, fewer offensive opportunities. So naturally the scoring opportunities are going to go down and the overall stats are going to go down. But we've seen Alex Kerfoot, he was playing top line center a couple of weeks ago, just based off of some injuries and some other struggles. But sort of the ideal, Swiss Army knife that you're looking for on the 3rd or 4th line. I think it kind of came down to next year where there'd only be one roster spot open for a Kerfoot return or a Bukestad return. And I think ultimately Kerfoot went out. Ian Cole, oldest player on the team, just turned 36, but a really good veteran defenseman, always makes the playoffs, has won a Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh. Like I said earlier, leads the league in block shots. And if you look at what the defense is going to look like next season, so on the left side, you would have Sergachev, you would have Dmitry Simishev, you would have Olimata, and then Ian Cole could rotate in as well. And then on the right side, it's equally as solid, where you'd have John Marino, Sean Dursey, Michael Kessering, and Maverick Lemera pushing for minutes as well. So if those are your top 8 defensemen, that's pretty solid.
Yep.
And you can never have too much depth. Go ahead.
Agreed. Now I'll play devil's advocate here and make a con case for both of these players. I would say the only con with having Kerfoot on the roster again is you are not going to be adding additional grit and brawn maybe directly into the 4th line. I still think there's going to be room to kind of tweak that bottom 9, especially since they did not re-sign Bukestad. But he is definitely more of that toolsy, smart defensively, but isn't going to just pound faces into boards type of player. So again, if I have to make some sort of con statement here, is that bottom 9 is going to look fairly similar. But again, there is some room to tweak here. Now, the con, I guess, for Ian Cole here is kind of jamming up the blue line as far as opportunities for guys like Simishev and Maverick Lemera. But this team's going to have so much cap that if Cole is rotating in and out all the time, or maybe if Mata slumps a little bit and now it's Cole and Simishev, I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye.
No. And I don't think we want to put ourselves in a position like we did this year, where 2 of our top 4D go down, and it worked out actually tremendously on both deals. But like we had to go out and trade for Olimata. We had to grab Nick DeSimone off of waivers. Both guys actually turned out to be pretty. Especially Mata, but Nick DeSimone I'm pleasantly surprised with him, and it's nice to have him.
Not Kovalchuk. He took
Kolyachonok.
Yeah, took his job.
Yeah, he did. So it's nice to have a vet down there. And I think even Ian Cole is at a point in his career where if he does get beat out, it's just one of those things where he's going to be happy to be on an NHL roster and probably be okay being a 7th D. Now, we're probably putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit. I think it's going to be important to see how Simish's training camp goes and see if he's actually ready to adapt to the North American game, especially the NHL. But in the perfect case, I mean, that's what happens. And Ian Cole is a nice mentor, as aforementioned. So I think it's a great problem to have, is too much depth. So especially with Kerfoot, I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. The dude, like you said, he could play on the 1st line, or he can be an elite 4th liner. So I love both of them.
Yep, agreed. All right, so let's keep on moving on, though. Ali Mata, 3 years at $3.5 million. Again, I think we were also impressed with him. You can read our initial reaction of when Bill Armstrong and the team traded for him at cleanhitshockey.com. That's where you can see all of our written content. We have profiles on every single Utah Hockey Club player preseason ranks. We just got done with our mid-season ranks, and we will do final grades for each of the players as well. So definitely check out all that written content at cleanhitshockey.com. We also have a ton of draft stuff coming out by Trent. So if you want to look forward to this upcoming NHL draft, definitely check out what we have typed up and scribbled up on our website. But Ali Mata, man, has he been impressive. I have always loved this player. Back in his Pittsburgh days, there was one point when he was going to be this like highly touted offensive two-way guy from his London Knights days, and he's just kind of become this like supreme puck transitioner. I wouldn't even call him a puck mover. He's just a puck transitioner. He pops it down the ice, makes a nice smarty kind of pass or dump that just clears it and without icing it so often. He's works hard against the boards. He's kind of exactly what this blue line that was full of a little bit more offensive minded guys, especially early in the season, with Sergachev and Kesselring, who like to pinch and kind of play up front. And then obviously Dursey is more of that puck mover and power play quarterback and playmaker. So Mata is just such a way to help keep the blue line dynamic, I think. And smart vet, Stanley Cup winner. 3 years is quite a bit of term, I would say. You could make the argument that maybe he was pretty hungry this year, knowing he was going to be a UFA, kind of losing minutes in Detroit. So he came over here and played his best. But I'm willing to take that chance that even if we can get him at 80% of the performance, 75% of the performance we've seen this year, he's still going to be a very valuable piece of this team. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think $3.5 million for just a well-rounded defenseman that you see make little to no mistakes is something that every team dreams of. You don't even think about the age at this point, and I mean his age is not showing. He's not even that old, but I think it's a great contract. It's well earned, man. When we made this trade, I was excited just because I know we had a hole to fill. But man, I have like you said, I've been wildly impressed with him. I had no idea he was going to have this much of an impact on the team. So you got to reward guys like that. He seems to love it here. I love that we had a press conference for him. I think that shows how much he's valued here. So at the end of the day, when you do stuff, when you go above and beyond for your players, they're going to go above and beyond for you. And he already has. So I'm really excited for this signing as well.
Yeah, just a defenseman who could come in, play 20 minutes, air-free hockey. He's not going to make any mistakes. Offensive touch is maybe not quite what it used to be, but you know, when you have some other defensemen like, Sean Dursey is great, and he's, especially offensively, and I think he's maybe underrated defensively, but at the same time, there are some moments where he's going to try some things that aren't going to work, and it's nice to have defensemen like Olli Mata potentially paired with him who can clean up those issues. $3.5 million. It's really hard to still wrap my head around. The number is fine, but we're kind of still operating under a cap that's what, 88 million, and it's going to go up to 115 million in 3 years from now. So, $3.5 million out of a $150 million cap, it's nothing. It's like 2%. So
yeah,
and that is very true. And I think that's still something I'm trying to adjust my mind around too, between having ownership that very rarely spent money and a kind of static cap over the kind of COVID years. When you first seen the number, if you've been following hockey and, we're a dork who spent way too much time on Cap Friendly and Puckpedia and whatnot, 3.5 is kind of like a, whoa, you mean typically that's your number 4 guy money, but in the rising cap area, this is going to be completely different. One other thing I wanted to point out, make sure you watch number 2 on the ice, Ali Mata, because it's just the brains and the smarts of the little things he does. There's aspects of Nicholas Hjalmarsson to me in his game, and it's not quite as refined on the pure shutdown that Hjalmarsson was able to execute. But he was one of those players that, everybody loved to talk about during his Chicago years. Everybody appreciated him. We probably all got more viewings of him during the playoffs. But once the Coyotes had him on the team, you really, really started to appreciate his play. And that's something that Ali Mata has done for me this season. It's just one of those things I kind of laugh at out loud when I see some of the just brilliant little touches he does. he's like Ian Cole, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
if that makes sense. He's not so much a body bag that just takes pucks to it and just tries to shut down people physically. It's almost like watching a finesse shutdown defenseman. And it's been fantastic to watch that. And again, I think it's so important for hockey teams to have dynamic blue lines. You can't just have offensive guys. You can't just have shutdown guys. You can't just have burly shutdown guys. It's kind of having that mix that really makes the whole thing click. So,
yeah.
Any final thoughts? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're a Coyotes fan, think of how valuable Zbigniew McCulloch was.
There you go. Yes,
if
that's
you
probably
remember,
a better comparable.
Right. I mean, you remember him, and he was awarded. I mean, you look at his stat line, you're like, man, I can't believe so many teams coveted him. But it's just smart defensemen who are willing to do what it takes to calm the game down, slow the game down, and that is so invaluable. Especially when the game gets really fast, and in today's NHL, especially towards the end of the year, it's really fast paced, and you need a guy like him to just say, hey, I got it. Let's take a breath, we'll reset. And it's amazing that we got him at the time we did. And I mean, you could see how he almost single-handedly keep that blue line together.
Yep. All right. Time to talk about the biggest signing, though. And I think there are a lot more discussion points with this one.
He big?
Karel Vejmelka. What? The hot tub. The hot tub warranty.
Oh, yeah.
That you saw last night. They have extended the Costco hot tub, Dylan Gunther McBain's hot tub warranty for 5 more years.
Still on the IR,
5 more years of relaxation after every game.
Yeah.
No, but Karel Vejmelka gets a 5-year deal at 4.75. Goalies are so hard to predict. And even his tenure on this franchise has been up and down. Last year, it kind of felt like we may have already seen the best of his play and he was forever going to be a backup. This year, he comes back in, takes over the starting role again with Ingram having to leave for some family emergencies and personal time as well. But Vejmelka has not looked back. He has not cracked under the pressure. At one point, he was top 5 in goals saved above expected, and he got the bag for it. Corey, what is your initial reaction on this?
Yeah, like I said earlier, this was kind of a contract that we've been speculating about for quite a while. 5 times 5, he ends up getting 5 times 4.75, especially after Vancouver just re-signed Kevin Lankin, and that seemed to be a nice parallel for this deal. But like you said, he's taken the number 1 role in Utah this season. He's taken a step from what he was in Arizona, but I think he's also grown with the team. As the team has improved, so has Vejmelka. You look at some of the defense he was playing behind in Arizona, where he had, standing behind offensive-only defensemen like Shane Gostisbehere, playing behind, Josh Brown, Juuso Valimaki, Troy Stetcher, and now he gets to play behind John Marino and Sean Durzi and Mikhail Sergachev. So he's improved with the team, and I think it's pretty safe that he's going to continue to play pretty well going forward. His save percentage this year is 7th best in the NHL of all the goalies who have played as many games as he has. So I do think it's kind of, he's our bridge to Michael Rabel at this point. I know we've talked a lot about, bringing in the next young goalie, but given that he signed for 5 more years, that's going to time pretty well to when Michael Rabel is ready to go pro with Utah, and maybe he'll go pro in a couple of years from now, but he'll go in Tucson, and then after that, Utah will be ready for him.
I'll be 100% transparent with you guys. I, up until this year, did not know how I felt about Karel Vejmelka. Even the way he unceremoniously came to Arizona, they found him in a European league, out of nowhere, and nobody knew who he was. And then a couple years into Arizona, there was rumblings from Elliot Friedman that he's, he was on an awful team, but his underlying stats were actually top 10 in the league, and teams were paying attention to that, saying, hey, if we could just put him behind our defense, he's going to be a player. And then we got Ingram, and Ingram kind of took over the net a little bit, kind of like what happened with Kemper and Ronta, right? Like again, making a Coyotes reference, but he didn't really know who our true number one was. And then this year, Vejmelka has proven as soon that he is the number one guy, and I actually feel really, really confident with him being back there. I love this signing. I know 5 years is kind of a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, but as Corey and Brad had mentioned, it's the perfect amount of time to allow Hrabal and who knows how our goaltending pipeline changes in the next 5 years. But it's the perfect little stopgap and at a very affordable number. Again, you got a number one goalie under $5 million. You look at other teams and their goalies contracts. I mean, well, Bobrovsky's making 10 million still. So it's you got a starting goalie at 4.75 with a raising cap. You're in really good shape. And so overall, last night it was just bang after bang after bang, hour after hour after hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, this team is set for the foreseeable future now, and it feels really good.
Philip Grubauer is making 1.2 million more than Vejmelka, and he's playing in the minors.
Right.
Yikes. Ouch.
Tristan Jarry, Pittsburgh, similar sort of situation.
Been pulled back up, but
yes. But he should be in the minors. But no, I remember Vejmelka came over to Arizona in that first training camp. The expectation was he was going to play in Tucson because Arizona's goalies were going to be Scott Wedgwood and Carter Hutton. And Vejmelka did not end up playing any games in Tucson at all. He stole at least the backup job in training camp. And then probably by, I don't know, the second or third game that year, he was the starter.
Yeah, I actually remember Trent being very, very upset that Carter Hutton was potentially going to be our starter because even though the team was kind of tanking at that point, he just kept on screaming that it was such a belligerent tank that it would be so demoralizing to the team that they could be breaking some of the younger guys like Keller on the team. But Vejmelka came in and made them somewhat respectable during kind of the darkest period the team's gone through in a little bit. But as we've talked about on this show, goalies are voodoo. And 5 years, I will just say it right here. I will not be surprised if 2 of those years are subpar. And it's just kind of how all the goalies that are not in the elite bucket of goaltenders perform. An elite goaltender in my mind plays very good hockey for 75 to 80% of their season and still has some down years. I mean, even guys like Vasilevsky have down years. He's just playing out of his mind right now. But that's kind of the roller coaster of the goaltender position. I would say those good to very good goaltenders are performing at high levels to 50 to 75% of their career. So that's really kind of what we want with Vejmelka here. Then there's kind of the ones that start to slide below that, where it's almost like every other year is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. You don't know which goaltender you're getting. Kind of guys like Tristan Jarry, Matt Murray kind of had this at some points. And then there's those goaltenders who have a couple months of stellar performances and then get sent back down to the AHL. And with 32 teams, and in the next 5 years, who knows? We may be at 33, maybe 34, maybe still at 32. That means there's more goalie tender spots in the NHL for every additional team, which means typical guys who used to be backups, used to be in the AHL, never would have sniffed the NHL, are starting all the time. So I do think it's important to have at least somebody who you trust and is capable to perform at a high level, 50% or better of the games they start, locked up, because it's becoming a game of musical chairs. And just a couple of seasons ago, we saw Colorado being the ones who were trying to sit down in the offseason, and there was no chair to sit down on besides Darcy Kemper, which they were saying they wouldn't trade a first for, and ended up not only trading a first, but a former first round pick.
There's Bill Armstrong with his Grim Reaper stick thing.
Yep. So, yeah, I again, that my expectations are, I hope we get more seasons like what we're seeing out of Vejmelka right now than we see fewer of them. I'm not going to pretend that I think he's going to be, a top 5 goalie in the league every year he's on this team, but gosh, he may be able to perform like that for stretches. And that's kind of what you want for that amount and term.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the question at all to look for a bit of a bounce back from Connor Ingram as well. Maybe a fresh start next year. And if you look at his numbers since he came back from the family situation, not too bad. I think it's about a full goal less against per game. And I mean, if that's what he can do over a long period, that's great. If you can have both the goalies going and you'd have them, I think Ingram's making 1.9, 1.95. 1.95. So you get your 2 goalies for $7 million. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, in $150 million cap.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that real quick too. If Ingram does kind of outperform Pamelka next year, does anybody have an issue with it?
No.
And does anybody have an issue with maybe signing him for 3 years at 3.5?
No. I think it's
now
fine.
Have your tandem locked up while the prospects can continue to develop. You don't need to think about goaltending, and you have it at around $8 million, which is typically what a good starter would make.
Yep. 1A and 1B. I mean, I think that's what Ingram is. I mean, let's give Ingram credit. I mean, to go through what he's gone through this year, I don't think anybody would play up to their normal standards. So, I agree with that. Let's let Vejmelka take the reins for the rest of the year, see where it goes, and give Connor Ingram a fresh start next year. See what happens. But I mean, Vejmelka's 28, Connor Ingram's 27. Vejmelka catches right, Connor Ingram catches left. It's like the perfect combination, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And these guys can constantly rotate, and you know that like you don't have to have one goalie carry the mail for 85% of the year and then cringe every time your other goalie goes in there. You can comfortably almost do like a 60-40 split depending on who's playing better and know that you've got a chance to win every night. So I'm a big believer in both goalies. They don't have to be top 5, top 10 goalies in my opinion, and they aren't paid like they are. But if they can provide consistent numbers for us and we have a good defensive core in front of them, which we do right now, that's really all you need. And so I'm extremely excited for this signing.
Yep, I agree. You looked at teams like New Jersey the past couple seasons where it seemed like they were going to make that turn, and they just didn't have the goaltender situation figured out. And I know they got Markstrom this year, but last year that wasn't the case. So I'm glad that is shored up before the rest of the roster really kind of solidifies themselves as a playoff contender year over year.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to discuss about the extensions before we move on to a little bit more trade deadline speculation?
The silly stuff. No, because I want to get into that. I'm ready for that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shout out Overtime Cards and Collectibles one more time. I did want to mention that right now they do have Utah Hockey Club treasure chest, which include different pieces of memorabilia. So definitely go in there. Some of that memorabilia is signed by different players. They also got some signed jerseys in from all of Gunther, Sergachev, and Cooley. So again, make sure you're getting down to Overtime Cards and Collectibles for kind of all of that awesome Utah Hockey Club merchandise, collectibles, cards, anything you can imagine, and help turn it into kind of a really great community hub for this team.
Yeah. All right. Brad already promised me the signed Dylan Gunther jersey. So that one's off the table. So I'm sorry, guys. But any other thing down there.
Yep.
Brad's just a great guy.
I heard that jersey smells a little bit like chlorine too. So it was like lightly used around the hot tub. So.
That's the one that got stuck in the drain.
Yeah. All right. Trade deadline is approaching. There are probably only 3 names on the Utah Hockey Club that I could see being moved at this point now that we have so many of the UFAs signed. Nick Bukestad, which will be a depth center for any team that is looking for kind of a 3 or 4 centerman. Michael Carconi, who is going to be a nice high energy type of winger. And then the name who seems to be floating on all of the trade deadlines list, which is Matias Michelli, who is a great playmaking winger, still young, on a great contract. This is a type of player that, gosh, I would say almost any team, whether they're rebuilding, tearing it all down, or fighting for a playoff spot, could potentially use.
Right.
So kind of thoughts on these three. Is there any kind of new rumors you guys have been hearing that of landing spots for any of these guys?
I've seen that's name on some trade boards and things like that, but having a hard time, thinking someone's going to want him because he's taken a step back this year. There's a lot of appealing things about him, right? He's a center, he's big, a little bit like Kerfoot, where he can play power play, he can play penalty kill, but he's taken a step back. He seems to have lost a step as well, speed wise. So I don't know if there's a buyer for him. And I mean, I don't mind if we are making a playoff push, just hanging on to him for depth as well. I don't think he's going to be brought back. I don't think he's going to be extended, but I don't think it's the end of the world to hang on for the next couple of months here either.
Right. I think the most intriguing name out there for us is Matias Maccelli. I think that, just him sitting out the amount of games he has, I feel like where there's smoke, there's got to be a little bit of fire. And it begs the question, is this truly performance based, or is Bill Armstrong again playing poker and not really giving a oh man, look at that little puppy dog action. Sorry, if you're not watching this on YouTube, that was a very squirrel moment by me. I saw Brad's dog and I love it. But anyway, I don't necessarily know if it's performance based, the reason why Matias Maccelli is sitting. That being said, Bill Armstrong is the creator of the trade related reasons reasoning for scratching a player, and we haven't seen anything like that. It could very well be that this is just one of the most stacked teams that he's ever iced. And every once in a while, a player has to have a message sent to him. But this is a big message, I feel like. I mean, there's a lot of games he's sitting out. So
6 in a row.
Yeah, 6 in a row. And he's young. He's 24 years old. He's one of the most elite passers I've seen in the game. It's so underrated. So I think that's something that we have to keep an eye on. And when Bill said just recently he doesn't want to subtract from this team, are you really subtracting from a team if you trade a guy that hasn't played a game in six games? Right. I don't know. I don't know if that's like, smoke and mirrors kind of strategy there. So I'm really intrigued to see that. I agree with you on Nick Bukestad. I think that somebody's going to take a flyer on him. Great guy. Wish him all the best. But I think his time here is probably over. Another guy I could potentially see is Nick DeSimone. I think that if, it's nice to have the depth. I don't want to see him go, but I could see a team saying, hey, we really, really need defensive depth. Your guys' core is healthy and you have more.
Valimaki is still in Tucson and can be pulled up.
So just a couple names to watch, but something's going to happen, guys.
On Maccelli, is it subtracting from the roster if you're trading Maccelli, but you're upgrading that spot? Because you look at the lines right now, that's second line left wing where we have, I think it's Alex Kerfoot and Michael Carconi are kind of swapping back at and forth, but you'd think that would be a area that we could add to this team. So if it's Maccelli and other things going out the door to upgrade the top 6,
right,
then it's not really a subtraction. But yeah, he sat for 6 in a row. He sat for 7 of the last 8. He's only played 1 game since coming back from the Four Nations face-off, or since the NHL came back, because he didn't make Team Finland, right? But it's wild, right? He had 57 points last year in Arizona, and you look at some of the teams in Arizona that would have led the team in scoring, and now we can't even fit him into the roster. So
he had 57 points last year.
He had 57 points, yeah,
almost 20 goals too, if I remember correctly.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy. So
there's a couple teams that I kind of had circled for him, like Boston Bruins. You could definitely see them wanting a playmaking winger up in their top 6. I mean, this is a team that has Charlie Coyle, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, Brad Marchand is out. I don't even know who is in his spot right now. And I don't feel like any of those guys could dish it out to Pasta. I mean, Maccelli and Pasta just seems like perfection. And at this point, we have kind of shown our cards. We're not going to be upgrading the blue line. We're not going to be looking to upgrade goaltending. The bottom 9 is kind of what it is. So really the big gap to me is an extra player in the top 6 forward group, and
top 3,
particularly winger, because right now Carconi has been playing with Hayton and Gunther quite a bit. Maybe you could upgrade a 2C, but man, getting another top 6 winger feels really good. So maybe it's something where Michelli can go over to Boston, you get some extra picks, and then you can add those picks with some prospects to go for a guy like Rickard Rakell. Maybe it's something even larger that rhymes with Eco Antonin. But yeah, it does seem like Michelli may be kind of that piece that is used to upgrade somewhere else. And I think at this point we have to talk about it. Mikko Rantanen. It seems like the pot is maybe starting to boil over. Just yesterday, there was a Spit and Chicklets interview with Biz Nasty talking about how he went out to dinner with Ryan Smith, and Ryan Smith said he wants to make a big splash either this summer or this deadline. Rantanen doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like Carolina is going to get the deal done to re-sign him now.
No,
Rantanen could come over to Utah and battle against Colorado.
Just earlier today, both Frank Saravelli and Pierre LeBrun reporting that I don't know if it's just with Carolina or altogether, but Mikko Rantanen is not signing an extension before the deadline.
Yep. So let's connect some dots here, and I'm going to need your guys' help here. So one, doesn't seem like he's going to be re-signing with Carolina before the end of the year. 2, there was a tweet out from Andy Strickland, one of the more trusted sources out there in the hockey universe, stating that you can scratch off the Los Angeles Kings as a team that Rantanen would choose to re-sign with. 3, there's been a lot, and I think Frank Saravalli, obviously Biz Nasty, there's somebody else that made a connection to saying, like, if Rantanen becomes an unrestricted free agent, I would imagine that Utah wants to be in the race.
I think Dave Pagnotta.
There is a lot of chatter between or connecting Utah to Rantanen. Now, not necessarily by the trade deadline, but there's been a lot of chatter. If he doesn't want to go play in a market like Los Angeles, that means one of 2 things to me. One, he doesn't like the big markets. He would prefer or the bigger markets like the New Yorks, the LAs, the Bostons, etc., any of the Canadian markets. And he wants to stay somewhere that he can be a star, but not live in this crazed world. 2, he doesn't like the taxes. Because LA, obviously, taxes are tough. The last dot I'm going to connect is that, and Brad hinted at it, and I love it. He spent his entire career with Colorado. He's probably got a lot of family and friends near there. I know of a place very, very close to Colorado where he can play and kind of stick it to an organization that sent him on his way.
Blindsided him too.
Blindsided him. Oh, I apologize. I lied. I mean, what's the last dot? Who is one owner that would probably back up the Brinks truck for a star player that does not come available very often? And I can't think of anybody else right now that's in a position to do that than Ryan Smith. What do you guys think?
We have all kinds of cap space, right? Yeah. I mean, even if you give Cooley $10 million, there's still all kinds of money left, and you want even more money, put Shea Weber on LTIR. That's like another $8 million right there. So
and Shea Weber's gone after the exactly right. How could you forget? He's been manning the
Hall of Famer Shea Weber. God, he's still on the roster.
Yeah, he's his contract is gone at the end of next year. So I don't know if I did that, but anyway. There was like a little thing that came up on my screen. But anyway, yeah, you're right. We have a stupid amount of cap space. Like, what's preventing him? I guess that's the question I was trying to get at. What's preventing Mikko Rantanen from signing with Utah? What do you think his reservations would be?
I think what's preventing him from signing in Carolina is he just needed more time, right? And Carolina's might get to the point here where they don't want to lose him for nothing. But if you can bring him into Utah, even if he's not extended, at least you have until July 1st, where you would have the next, what is that, April, May, June? You'd have the next like 100 days to try and figure out extension, whereas Carolina had what, like half that amount of time? So,
right. So would you, Brad, I'm just going to ask you, would you take the risk, even if it meant giving up a significant roster player, probably a first-round draft pick in either this year's draft or next year's draft, and maybe some prospects that we were excited for, but maybe don't have an opportunity at Utah's roster?
So that's a good question. And without him being signed, I don't think the price would be quite like that. So in my mind, it's what can you give Carolina that replaces Martin Necas, who was part of the initial deal for Rantanen. They already added Hall. So they've already added a bottom 9 forward, right? And we were just talking about Michelli. That would add some playmaking and scoring touch to their top 6, something that they kind of can lack in, especially if you're losing Rantanen. Now you lost a power forward unicorn type top 6, top forward or top winger in the league. So you're going to want to replace him. And then one of the names that's been floating around in our Discord is Nick Schmaltz. If you want to do a very solid upgrade, you could move Schmaltz and Michelli, maybe retain on Schmaltz. You could add some prospects or later picks to kind of balance it out and take that run at showcasing SLC to Mikko Rantanen in the hopes to sign him long term. You are not really losing player Michelli because he can't get into the lineup right now. You are at least upgrading Schmaltz for the time being. And if Rantanen doesn't resign, you have the offseason to address that problem again.
And Carolina's been after Schmaltz for years.
Yes. And that is something that going back into last year's deadline really started a lot. There were a lot of connections to Schmaltz to Carolina. So it seems like we could get that package done that would appease Carolina now. It would allow them to have a player like Schmaltz for another year and a Michelli for multiple years to kind of supplement that top 6 for them and continue to be a cup contender or at least a conference finalist contender, and allow us to audition a player that if it doesn't work out, it's not going to be a complete disaster, kind of like the Taylor Hall trade.
Right.
Was there not a player who got traded a couple of years ago before the deadline and then the team traded them again before the deadline because they couldn't resign him? I know it happened way back when with Thomas Vanek when he went from Buffalo to the Islanders to Montreal. But I feel like there was another player that happened recently.
The only player
team just going to get it done.
The only player I can think of is Jeff Carter.
Wait, was Taylor Hall?
Buffalo signed him and then traded him to Boston the same year.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. So a little bit different, but
there's probably somebody else we're missing, and it's blatant.
Wait.
I mean, but as far as Rantanen, I don't want to give up a first-round pick for a rental. I mean, even like I don't think an extension is going to happen. I think he's going to get traded as a pure rental, and then his new team, if he gets traded, can figure out the extension. They'll have until July 1st to do it, but
they don't have enough time to figure this out.
Right. I mean, like the deadline is in 23 hours from now. So it's very hard to figure that all out. But I mean, if you can get it done with, Schmaltz or Michelli are both second tier pieces, like second round picks, Julian Lutz, Mikko Matica, guys that likely aren't going to have a spot on this team, then I think it makes sense. And then I think that's a good way for Carolina to almost save face a little bit, right? Where they give up Marty Necas for, at least that way you're getting something for, if you bring in Schmaltz or Michelli, they're signed through next season, whereas Mikko Rantanen could walk at the end of this season.
Yeah. And we're not pushing for Schmaltz to leave. It's just we're just speculating that that's probably the piece that Carolina would want. But I'll be the crazy guy here. I know not much has changed. I think that you take the risk. I would probably trade a first round pick for him if that's what it took. And I think that the reason why is we have 3 seconds in next year's draft. And this draft has been notoriously talked about as a weaker draft after the top 10. So I think you sit on your hands without a first round pick this year. And if there's a player that you see falling that you actually really like, you can use one of your 4 second round draft picks over the next calendar year to trade up and grab the player. So I don't know. I think we're all really excited about it. I don't know why we all feel like something big could happen. There's always that one trade, like Thomas Hurdle going to Vegas last year.
Yep.
We could be that sleeper team. There's always one trade every single year that it happens. So I don't know. Yep. I just get that odd feeling, and there's a lot of stuff that's happening lately with this team that kind of points that there might be a change coming. So we've beaten a dead horse. We're all very clearly excited. Was there anything else or any other player that we wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it for me, but we've done a couple deadline speculation episodes now, so make sure you're following us on YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe, please. That definitely helps us improve the show. Or you can follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify as well. Don't forget we are on Instagram where we pump out the memes. So make sure you're following us on all of our socials. Join us on our Discord. That's discord.cleanhitshockey.com. You can pick up, again, some of our new swag that will be dropping. Make sure you're got your new fit for that Sergachev signing at Overtime Cards and Collectibles at shop.cleanhitshockey.com. I did want to leave us on this note, and it's a sad one. Corey posted it in our group chat last night.
What?
10 years ago, around the deadline, during the tankathon for the Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid, Dylan Strome, Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen, Noah Hanifin, Ivan Provorov, Pavel Zacha was a top 5 or top 6 pick, but outside of that, Zach Werenski, insane top 10 in this draft of 2015. This is what this franchise's roster looked like. Now, mind you, there were 2 significant injuries on the forward group, but around the trade deadline in 2015, it was Tobias Reeder, Sam Gagner, Shane Doan on the top line, Lauri Korpikoski, I forget his first name, Arcobello, Martin Erat on the second line. Is it Jamie McGinn, Kyle Chipchura, David Moss? I forget Crombean's first name.
BJ.
BJ, thank you. Yeah. Vitelli and Craig Cunningham was the forward group.
Stacked.
If you don't know many of those names, you are not alone. If those names haunt you, you are an official diehard Coyotes fan.
Yep. Thanks, Corey.
Mammoth fan.
No, I think you were bang on in the group chat that even the teams like San Jose, Chicago. I mean, I know Chicago has Bedard and San Jose has Celebrini, but those rosters aren't anywhere near as bad as that Coyotes team. No. And that Coyotes team didn't even finish last. Buffalo finished last, and then we still picked third.
So, that's why. And there are 2 less teams in the league.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm still so salty about that.
But that was a decade ago. Buffalo out-tanked us, and they still haven't made the playoffs since.
Yep.
Oof. Ouch.
I mean, I guess, have we? But I guess kind of with an asterisk beside it. But
once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Technically once, and then Colorado spanked us, and now I want Mikko Rantanen to just push it back in their face.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, that's our show. Again, Give us a like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. We love all the comments. We try to reply to everybody. Get involved with our community, whether that's at our Discord at discord.cleanhitshockey.com, over at Overtime Cards and Collectibles, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and all the socials. Make sure you are showing your support for Team Mammoth here. Boo Outlaws, sorry, not sorry, by picking up your shirt at shop.cleanhits.com. And I will hopefully be meeting a lot of you in person at the end of March, and then keep that April 10th last home game date circled, because we may have some fun stuff coming up then as well. I am Brad. We had Kenny and Corey from Clean Hits Hockey. Trent was too busy working to be able to break down all this important news, but he is actually going to be going up to Utah next week for the Ducks game, which is hilarious. So make sure you say hi to him and his lovely family if you see them up there. Trade deadline tomorrow.
Quack at him.
Yeah, he'll be the guy flipping off Gudis. If you can't find him, he's gonna be in Gudis's kitchen all night. So just look out for him.
Yeah, and if he has a black eye, he caught Gudis in between periods and going down the dressing room or something. But I forgot what I was going to say. I think that's tomorrow. Trade deadline. We may be doing a stream, so keep your eye on our Twitter account that we may go live, may have some friends and guests pop in just to kind of react to things that are going on. Hopefully we can catch breaking big news of a signing, and enjoy your day. Oh, game day tonight.
There's a game. Actually. Yeah, I was just going to say, we didn't even mention
game against Detroit.
Day. Yeah, we huge 2 points on the line. So let's go club.
Yep. All right. Adios, everybody.
We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.